When it comes to mobility, there is one single exercise that I practice religiously because it is objectively the best mobility exercise in the entire world. Ask anyone who agrees with me. This exercise, if taken to its limit, will cover basically your entire body's mobility requirements, as well as help you build immense strength, control, and overall muscle endurance. Not to mention that it will help you avoid injuries in the most injury-prone regions in our body, which are our hips, our knees, and our ankles. Especially as we grow older and as our mobility starts decreasing. And to make this more accessible for everyone, we're gonna put it into a progression. Start out very easy and with every level advance to more and more flexibility, strength, and coordination requirements. So if you're a beginner, you can step right in. If you're more advanced, you can jump to the level where you feel most comfortable. If you're ready, let's go and have some fun. Starting position, wide stance, feet parallel, legs extended. The first level should be learning how to bring your hip joint all the way down to knee height while keeping both feet completely parallel and one leg completely extended. So you should work on getting to that level before you can move on to level number 2, because this will be the foundation of every single level after. Now, level number 2 is where things become really interesting, because we want to go as low as possible, sit down all the way into a Cossack squat or a lateral squat while keeping your feet completely flat and parallel. You're stretching your adductors or the insides of your legs more. However, if you lower down and start turning into an external rotation in your hip joint, now you are stretching your posterior chain, so more your biceps femoris, your hamstrings, your gastrocnemius, your soleus. And once you start pulling in those toes, you have a nice little stretch in your Achilles tendon as well, and a little bit of stretch in your foot musculature. So level number 2 should be lowering down and learning both variations. The low sitting one with feet parallel for adductor stretch, as well as the low sitting one with external rotation in your hip for the hamstring stretch. Now, moving on to the next level, we're gonna start adding hip flexor stretches, because if you have noticed, up until now, we have been bending in both of our hips, which means that now we wanna bring one knee down all the way carefully and start pushing our hip forward, which is gonna engage our posterior chain while lengthening our anterior chain, specifically our hip flexors, and reverse the entire movement in a controlled fashion. Bring that knee down and push forward once more. We're rolling over our toes, we're lengthening in the front, we're activating in the back, and we're moving dynamically using our own strength and our own control. If you do need some assistance in that movement until you get the form down perfectly, you can work with your hands on the ground, just like so. Push forward, reverse, and repeat on the other side. Now with the next level, we can start adding more posterior chain stretches by sitting down all the way and grabbing right hand to the right foot, all the way up, and left hand to the left foot. Additionally, we want to increase the external rotation in our hip joint by pushing our toes outwards as much as we can and pulling them towards our upper body. You can work with your hands for more balance, so you can concentrate more on the flexibility part of this exercise. Complete external rotation in our hip and pull those toes in to lengthen all of that. All the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. Now that we've gotten over the basics, we can move on to some of the more advanced variations where we're going to require a lot more mobility. Instead of sitting down and staying up here, we're going to start bringing that knee down just like before, but instead of pushing forward, this time we're going to push our hip back. And what that is going to do is increase the stretch on our foot musculature, add rotational mobility on our knee joint, making it stronger and more durable, lengthening our posterior chain in the right side even more. And now comes the important part. We're gonna turn our upper body and grab with the left hand towards the right foot. This diagonal rotation is gonna add the slightest bit of lumbar mobility, which we're gonna increase later. Don't worry about it. And once you're done, move up all the way in a controlled fashion, sit down all the way, bring your butt down, and once again, cross over. Of course, you can work with your hands on the ground, cross over, hold for a second or two, and repeat on the other side. Now with this one, I would advise to work on it until you feel really comfortable before you move on to the next level, because it's going to get exponentially harder.
That's what she said.
Now, since most of the past levels have been focusing more on our posterior chain, let's switch to our anterior chain. But this one's going to require a lot of strength and a lot of control, so stay concentrated. As usual, we're going to move down laterally, get into this external rotation in our hip, and then we're going to use our right hand behind our right leg, which in this situation is the extended leg, and we're going to start pushing our hip up as much as we can and lengthen our arm. If we are doing everything correctly, we now have a stretch in our entire anterior chain, starting at our tibialis, moving up our quadriceps insertions towards our hip flexor insertions, going through our obliques and our abdominals, our latissimus, our deltoids, and even our triceps, all the way to our fingertips before we move back forward, all the way up, all the way down, and repeat the entire process on the other side. You can work as dynamically as you want to, and you can even hold statically in the extension phase where you feel the most stretch. Not only does it feel absolutely amazing, but you're stretching your entire anterior chain while actively strengthening your entire posterior chain by pushing up. Very amazing exercise, one of my absolute favorites. Work on it as much as you can because it really has an insane amount of benefits. Now, to take this one to the next level, all we want to do is start in the same position, hand down, but instead of only keeping our hand down, we're now going to place our lower arm also on the ground, which in turn, when we start pushing up, is going to lengthen our anterior chain even more, but specifically around our hip flexor, which is one of the most problem-prone zones when it comes to getting injured. All the way up, carefully, take your time, sit down on the other side, right hand behind the right leg, arm down, and then push up as much as you can. And while you're in this position where our entire anterior chain is lengthened, we want to actively pull our fingertips towards the ground to add more latissimus and deltoid stretch as well, and lengthen our triceps even more. Now you might be wondering, how can we take this even a step further? Don't worry about it, we're gonna get there, but there is a level in between all of these that I want you to work on as well. Working as slowly as possible with our hips. So instead of moving all the way up between repetitions, we're gonna move laterally with our hips pushed down towards the ground and our elbows helping out by opening up our knees all the way to one side and all the way to the other side. This is gonna help us even more with our adductors, even more with our hip strength. If you need the help from your hands on the ground, don't worry about it, but over time you will have the strength and the balance to switch by yourself without any help, and then you can use your elbows to push out as far as you can. And this one, in between sets, can be used for every single level. Instead of moving up and sitting down like so, you can move very low and then sit down the same way. Now, to take this one to the next level, number one, start with your hands on the ground and go through the same exact movement pattern until your knees on the ground and your butt, as well as your entire extended leg, all the way up, and switch directions. But even more importantly, we want to be at the level where we can fix our lower arms on the ground and go through this entire movement pattern all the way down, legs and butt in complete contact with the ground, all the way up, and move to the other side. The insane amount of hip, knee, and ankle mobility required for this one is a good sign of you being able to advance to what we're gonna do after this. And now, to the most advanced level, we can take this exercise to its final form, and what we're gonna use for that is, yes, weights for all the levels we did before, and I'm gonna show you how. But what is very important, until you perfect the form with all of them, start with the tiniest tiny baby weight you can find and work your way up with small increments, because we do not want to increase our injury risk, we want to actively push it down. And since you've listened to me and you perfected the form before you went on to use weights, now we can put one arm right behind our back and work like so. Level number 1, hip joint to knee height. Level number 2, sitting down all the way with external rotation in our hip. Level number 3, down all the way, knee down all the way, push forward for a hip flexor stretch, reverse, stand up. You don't need your hands to help because you've already perfected it. Sit down all the way, add a hamstring stretch, keep your upper body upright, sit up all the way, and you're gonna notice an insane amount of strength requirements in your hip flexors now. Sit down all the way, butt down, upper body towards your leg. Try and keep that weight behind your back. It can even help you push the slightest bit lower. And then instead of keeping the weight at the back, we're gonna bring it to the front because once again, we're gonna sit down all the way, bring our hand behind our body and lengthen. And now we're using the weight to pull us even deeper into a stretch before we reverse, move up all the way, switch hands and repeat on the other side. And there you have it, a full body flexibility, strength and endurance as well as coordination exercise routine with a single foundational exercise. And if you can work yourself through this progression step by step, get to the highest level, trust me on this one, you're not gonna need a lot of other exercises if at all. I'm pretty sure you can use this one to advance your entire body flexibility because we're basically covering all of it, especially the places where we get injured the most. After more than 10 years of mobility work, I think that this is the most effective, best peak efficiency mobility exercise you can work on. But with that said, once again, sadly, that's all the time I've left for you today. If you liked the video, like the video and subscribe. And please check out other videos on this channel like this one, which YouTube things you will absolutely love. And I will see you guys tomorrow because we literally have new videos every single day. So until then, Captain Cairo, peace out.